welcome to A Drink and a Natter. I'm your host, Jackie, the Juicy Chef, and this episode means a lot to me because Mary and I have been trying to get together for a long time. She's a busy bee, then COVID and whatnot. So I'm so touched she had the time to spend with me this afternoon. Marianna is one of Jamaica's best vegan chefs on the island. I love how she embraces her culture and also her adopted culture of Jamaica. Her use of our local ingredients with a little sprinkle of Middle Eastern spice and her heritage is absolutely beautiful. If you're following her on social media, her pictures would make you want to lick the screen. They're so beautiful, and she puts her heart and soul into the dishes she creates. What I love too, when you go to her restaurant, you don't know what you're gonna get. It's not boring. The plate of the days, you're so excited because you don't know what you're going to get. If she's used jackfruit that day or plantain or whatever in a unique manner. Marianna, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm so happy.
Thank you.
So finally.
Yeah, thank you. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, I know. And Marianna has a lot to say. Her posts, what I like, some people just post. Every single post that she makes, there's an educational aspect to it, whether history, the science behind it, something. She's real. She's authentic. She'll experiment. Sometimes things don't work. She'll say, it didn't work, but I kept trying, but something else came out of it. And that is a true chef. A lot of people, or a true cook, a lot of people say they love food, or, food is fashionable now.
Mm-hmm.
But you and I know a lot of people who are so-called in food, we don't feel their hearts.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that, right?
Yeah.
There seems a bit of a... It's not genuine.
Mm-hmm.
And with you, I find you're like my soul food sister.
Yeah, I feel the
because
same,
we
yeah.
connected immediately because we speak the same type of food language in our own special ways. Obviously, because your style and my style are different, but we both appreciate because we're both coming from that same background. We have kitchen experiences. We've lived in different places. We've traveled around the world. We travel through our kitchens. I know I certainly travel through your posts, especially now when we're not as free to move the way we would like. And what brought you to Jamaica? I think a lot of people are curious about that. Can you tell us a bit about what brought you here?
It's a long answer.
Yeah.
So it's a question I get very often because I'm not from here, as you said. And I don't have family here. I'm really out here on my own. Mm-hmm. And I do get this question a lot. So what happened? So just like you, I love traveling because traveling was a big way of learning about food. Mm-hmm. I think it's better than going to cooking school.
Definitely.
By far, if you can travel, do that and don't go to the cooking school.
Yeah.
My opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, so I grew up. I lived in Europe my whole life, and then I had this job opportunity in the U.S. On the East Coast.
Okay.
And I was coming from France, where you have 6 weeks paid vacation.
Which I love and I miss.
Yeah, and I went from that to 2 weeks vacation.
Yeah.
Just different work culture in the U.S.
I'm crazy. I don't understand that. The Americans, they work so hard for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I've never gotten that.
It's a really different workaholic culture.
Yeah,
over
and it's
there.
almost like they feel guilty to take time off. Some of them. You
I
notice that? It's weird for me. Yeah.
I would meet people there who was it was guilt. They didn't want to take time off. They didn't want to take a break for lunch. And that was so different from, especially the French lifestyle. So anyways, I had less time to travel, obviously. And for me, I work to travel. That's one of my biggest pleasures in life. So I'm like, okay, I can't keep going. I can't go long distance because, as you know, you lose a day doing all the transits and jet lag. And you lose a lot of time when you go to faraway destinations.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just told myself, I'm like, you have to find something that's 3 to 4 hours by plane and no more than that.
Like
nearby trip. So I took out a map and I just said, what's everything that's in that 3 to 4 hour travel time? And then drew a circle around it. And
so cool.
Obviously the Caribbean fell in that. And I closed my eyes and I just pointed my finger and I'm like, oh, Jamaica. And Jamaica was not on my list.
Okay.
It
Ever.
really wasn't.
Yeah.
I'm like a Mexico and India girl.
Right,
so
yeah.
Jamaica was not on the list, but I'm like, okay, Jamaica, let's, we'll check it out. And I came here the first time in 2012. I actually couch surfed in Corville Gardens.
That's off the boulevard, right? Corville Gardens.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And couch surfing is like the I mean, there's an actual website called couchsurfing.org.
Yeah, I remember that because they were before Airbnb, weren't they? Yeah, they were like
They're the predecessor of Airbnb.
Right, yeah.
And then now, I don't use it now, but I did use it, and it was actually a really cool travel website in its early days. Anyways, I came, and I just came back like 7 times after that.
Jamaica's
doing
addictive.
a lot of I did a lot of social projects here. That's what always brought me back.
Yeah.
So I would come, and I'm like, okay, we can do something about this. I would organize crowd funds in the U.S. and then come back, and then eventually I mingled a lot with the creative crowd here, with a lot of visual artists. And then that eventually took me to a much bigger project, which was a street art project downtown called Paint Jamaica.
You were part of Paint Jamaica?
Yes, I started.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. At that time I had quit my job, and I'm like, you know what? I just want to like take a year off. I love street art, and then I connected with some artists here, and I told them like, let's just start this thing. And it was supposed to be 1 mural in 1 month, and then it ended up being like 35 murals in 6 months.
That's gorgeous.
And then we did it again 2 years later, and then we just stopped.
Okay, so the Kingston Creative basically took off from where you left off.
Maybe, I mean,
it's two different things, but
but I know,
nice.
I know the time that I initiated that project. I know at the time there's a lot happening around the world with street art. Like there was favelas in Brazil being painted up. There's a street artist, a French street artist I really admire called JR.
I love JR. I love him.
So JR was like really getting attention during that time, I think.
And he does a lot for. It's not just going in. He actually helps the community.
Yeah, there's a social
benefit
aspect to it.
And longevity is not just like, oh, I go in and come out and just do something for optics and then leave. He continues to go back and build upon these communities. Yeah.
So I always found that inspiring. I've always been into like urban street culture. Always loved kind of the impact that has. And and then that was my longest trip here. And I left always knowing I wanted to come back. And I did, and then I worked I did some years working here, and then eventually I just said, maybe it's time to open my own thing, which I had always dreamt about.
Because I followed her blog before, you actually opened the brick and mortar restaurant, and, that was just amazing. And a friend of mine, you used to do private dinners?
Yeah, I used to do supper clubs, just informally, where I would have a secret menu, and you would just sign up. You didn't know what you're going to eat. You didn't know who the guests would be, but you would just show up.
Yeah.
So you can see, like, how that feeds into what I'm doing now.
Yeah,
this whole
definitely.
secret element. And then food connecting people kind of thing. I always believed in that.
Because when you go to her restaurant, which is called Marianna's Kitchen, so again, the wording, kitchen, you feel like you're going into her house, even though it's a commercial space, but you don't feel that. You actually feel, in Europe, I eat by myself, but in Jamaica, I just don't do it. But I can come to your place and eat by myself. It's a space for women that we feel safe
to
eat
that
to eat by ourselves, because I don't do that anywhere else. And you're the first space in Jamaica that I've been able to go in, have a meal, and that's how I became friends with Joelle, because I came in I think I missed you a couple of times, and he just took good care. Her staff are amazing, and that says a lot about you too. The connection that you have with yourself, it's like a family. It's not this boss and staff type vibe, which is so typical of Jamaica with the class structure that we have in this country. You feel like everybody's invested, how you've taught them your dishes too. She doesn't just make a dish and say, okay, she teaches them everything, and I love that generosity of spirit. How you share with them, and in turn they can sell it to us. Oh, you should have this because blah 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 blah. I love that.
Thanks,
it's amazing
Jackie.
What you've done.
I appreciate what you've said, because I feel like you really understand what I'm trying to do.
Oh, thank you.
And I think some people get it, but no one has articulated it the way you just did.
Oh, really?
Yes, I actually really appreciate that. Like, no one has actually articulated. Like, you could just talk for me.
Oh, good. I'll be your PR.
No, but I appreciate that.
No, but that's how
really
I genuinely feel. And my brother had your food for the first time the other day. He's like, oh my God, how did I miss this? And he said, this was so different. Because that's the thing too, we have, but I'm loving the plant-based culture that's developing on the islands. As you know, I'm a practicing flexitarian. I'm not vegan like you, but so I have my plant-based days. And of course, back in the day, I used to be bored, not anymore. But back in the day when I came to Jamaica the first time, and no disrespect to my Rasta brethren or anybody else, but everything had coconut milk in it. I love coconut milk, but everything almost tasted the same. But now our chefs, are using the different ingredients. They're diversifying, and I think somebody like you show people the possibility of, okay, vegetarian food doesn't have to have coconut milk in it to taste good, or vegan food, I should say. Speaking of veganism, were you always a plant-based person, or did you switch to?
No, so I transitioned like 6 years ago.
Okay.
But I come from a Middle Eastern background, so as you know, we already eat a lot of, like, we're heavy on vegetables and grains and beans, and so it's already it takes a big part of our diet in the first place, especially vegetables. Like, I find from, like, if you look at the map and you do, like, Turkey to Japan, like, there's just a very strong usage of vegetables and greens and bitter greens, like the bitter greens especially. I love bitter greens, and then Mexico also uses a lot of, like, fresh herbs and vegetables, and so I already come from that background, but it wasn't until I moved to the States that I just got turned off completely. It wasn't even, like, that was literally my reason. Like, I moved to the States, and I'm like, why does it taste like this?
I know.
And coming from France, where they take it so seriously, so I'm like, why does the cheese taste like this? Why does the meat look like this? And I just cut it out. And then I started to feel better. I did like a week, and then a week became a month, and then there's like bumps in the road, because I don't think there's one way to do this.
That's true. Yeah, everybody's
I think
different.
it's so important. That's why I actually love that you're flexitarian, and I think that's I think that's where the world is going to be heading.
Definitely, yeah.
Because I don't like this. I'm going to say something and it might upset some people.
Speak freely.
But I don't like it when, like, vegans are radical with the veganism thing. Because first of all, like, I've seen, Instagram is obviously a big platform for food people. And I'll see vegan chefs saying that, coming off as if they're superior to everyone else, which is not true.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to eat meat one day, so, like, who am I to talk?
Right.
My family still eat meat. Like, I don't cut them off or think I'm above them. So I think that's a little, we don't even know, like, food is changing. Like, they're saying they're trying to grow things on planet Mars now, because maybe one day we might move there, and certain things will not grow there. So who knows what food will even look like in 200 years' time.
That's true.
So I think we have to stay respectful towards each other. I think it's very important in food. I don't think there is any right or wrong. So yes, I transitioned 6 years ago. There is no one way to do this. Everyone goes vegan for their own reason. I think that's very important also.
Personal choice.
Right. And I also believe, like, we're all fundamentally different bodies, and our bodies react to things very differently. Like, I know, now there's this keto trend.
Oh, yeah.
I could never do keto, because for some reason my body just doesn't assimilate so much fat so well. But maybe it works for other people. So we have to stay very diplomatic and very classy in this whole thing. Because we don't know what the future is going to look like.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said this, because
I think that's very important in food.
So
like, it can't
important.
divide people. Like, we can't let that happen to food.
Yeah, and you've been following my, that's a common theme with my posts, if you notice as well, because how people have made food political. Okay, sometimes it has to be a bit political, yes, because when they're poisoning us, yes, we have to take a stand and say this is not right, or some of the ways that they raise animals is not right, but fundamentally, like you say, our cultures, our budgets. Like the other day, so-called Rastafarian, because I wonder if it's just locks, it was truly Rasta, because most of the Rastafarians I know are very peaceful people, and he bullied me. He said to me, how can you be a spokesperson for Meatless Monday and you eat meat? I said, yes, but do you know the ethos of Meatless Monday is going plant-based one day a week. We are like a gateway for meat eaters to the wonders of the plant-based world. And if that means that that person will transition, like yourself, to a fully plant-based diet, or decrease their meat consumption, which in itself is a gift to the planet, because we need to decrease our consumption and the way meat is being manufactured. But I love a good steak sometimes. Will I eat meat every day? No. Meat now is more of a treat for me than the norm. And like you said, everybody transitions differently. My transition is consciousness for the planet. Some will be animal rights. Some will be, like you said, some will be weight loss even, or medical reasons. But I hate, and I'm so happy you said this too, coming from you as a vegan, because usually I find it's the meat eaters, or like people like myself who are the in-betweeners, the flexitarians, who are trying to bring the two extremes together. Like, it doesn't have to be, because if there's a poor man and he has a chicken to feed his family, who am I to tell him you cannot eat that chicken if that's what he could afford and that's what he actually likes? Because again, I like the taste of meat, but what I'm loving now is people like yourself now who are doing these amazing plant-based dishes that satisfy me, because that was a problem for me before. I didn't feel satisfied with some of the vegan food I was eating before. I think veganism has come a long way.
Yeah, it's evolved
you know what I
a
mean?
lot. Even the image of, like, imagine if you, sorry to interrupt, like,
That's
if you
okay.
think about like imagine a vegan person in the 60s or 70s, it's like hippie tree hugger.
Stereotype.
And now a vegan is like,
you don't know.
It could be many things now, but so the whole thing has changed.
Yeah,
completely,
definitely. And I love the
changed.
language of inclusivity, and I'm really happy you said that, because I don't. But I had a friend the other day who said to me, Jackie, I feel like I'm being bullied to become a vegan, and she's like, I almost feel like the way I eat is not but food is not supposed to be fashionable. Food is sustenance. Food is nutrition. Eat what you want to eat. If somebody doesn't like what you post, tell them to unfollow you, or something like that. But I don't understand why everybody has to express an opinion. My mum used to say, Jackie, if you have nothing good to say, keep your mouth shut. But you have these, what I call them, these like soldiers online who are just like bullies for people's choices, and stay out of people's business, what they have on their plate. Because as you said before, it could be cultural too. It's culture, it's availability, it is economics, what can I afford, seasonality even. But I am excited about the foods that you make and some other people, because my mum, she went vegetarian for a while. I was vegetarian for a while. I had to eat meat again, but I couldn't eat it the way I used to eat it. But I tell people, season your vegetables the way you season your meat, because people just have this perception, I can't season vegetables the way you season meat.
Yeah, no, you're right.
But you can.
That's exactly it.
You can. And I love how you build up on these flavors, your flavor profiles of your food, and how you mix and match. Because I'm a spice addict. I love spices. All my friends know. Everybody will go abroad and buy, clothes and shoes or whatever. I bring back spices. And so I'm so excited. I got some sumac from you the other day, and some of those Pakistani rose petals. I'm like, finally, rose petals. I don't have to go abroad again, And I love that not only can we go and eat your food, but you sell the spices that you put in your food as well.
And I'm also very, I have a love affair with spices, and as you know very well, you'll taste a cumin from a supplier and a cumin from another supplier, and they taste radically different. And then
speaking of, are you going to bring back the turmeric from that Mr. Thompson
guy?
Yeah,
that's the plan. Unfortunately, this pandemic has kind of taken up a lot of time for me. But that's the plan.
Speaking of the pandemic, how is, because hospitality and restaurants around the world are taking a beating, how have you shifted things, to stay afloat in this environment?
Well, it was, obviously it was surreal for everyone. I had just opened, I opened in July 2019.
Oh yes, quite recent.
2019, and then this thing we started to feel it in Jamaica in March. So I was just in my early days, and we were just kind of getting to a really good point, and then unfortunately, this pandemic started. So on the one side, there's the curfew changes all the time.
And in the beginning too, we were still coming off the back end of a drought.
Yeah,
remember?
Also that.
And how that's another thing. Because you're a vegan, plant-based, and
gosh,
the weather,
the
seasonality,
that completely
the rainy,
me. And that's why my menu changes from day one. That was the reason why my menu changed. Because having lived here, I saw how sensitive fresh produce is and how the price is just like up and
Yeah.
down. So I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna open a restaurant in Jamaica, the menu has to change every day. Especially because like we don't freeze anything, we don't have a freezer. I rely so much on vegetables, and I just said the menu has to change every day. But with the pandemic now, I mean, it was just adapting, thinking on my feet, doing what I think food should do. And I wanted people to still find comfort in food. That was very important. And I just kept, like, every day I would walk into the kitchen and I would just say, what can we do in this space that's meaningful right now? You know, and one of the big things was working with farmers, because as you know, a lot of them were stuck with unsold produce.
Could you tell our audience and listeners about that? That was a great initiative.
So in March, so obviously Jamaica relies so much on tourism, and with all the hotels shutting down, that's a lot of farmers going out of business. That's like many farmers. And I started to read that, you know, produce going to waste, excess produce, and then eventually we started to feel it because the farmers would approach us. They would just come and knock on the door and be like, I have this, do you want to buy any?
Wow.
And then we came across a tomato farmer, and his story, he just told me, he's like, I have a bunch of grape tomatoes in my truck, do you want to buy any? So I went and I took a look at them, and he said usually he sells them to the hotels. And he said last week he had donated up to 2,000 pounds of unsold tomatoes to people in quarantine at the hospitals.
Okay.
And this was like after 15 minutes of talking to him, and I just told him, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, we gotta work together. Because I respect people like that.
He's trying.
And I told him, I'll try to organize a farmer's market at the kitchen where we sell your produce. It just happened to be him. Like, I had met many people, but there was something about his story.
Yeah, that connection.
That's kind of life. Like,
so
he just connects with some people. And anyway, so we started to do farmer's market. We started with him, and then we started to bring in other farmers that we work with. And people appreciated it because the supermarkets were going crazy at the time. No one wanted to be stuck at the supermarkets.
Yeah, everyone's scared.
So, and then I just kept every day. I looked at the kitchen. I'm like, we're takeout only right now. But we can become our own little supermarket. So we sold fresh produce to help the farmers, but it also benefited the customers. We sold like salad dressings, salad mixes, cornbread mixes, cookie mixes. Like, I just became a supermarket for a while and still cooked food.
Yeah.
And I realized it was a win-win for everyone, and that's how I like to operate. Like, it has to benefit everyone.
From the community.
And it can.
Yeah.
Like, I think that that's my belief is...
That's how the future needs to be as well.
Right.
We have to,
So anyways, I just you know, we just kept adapting, and then with the curfews, our opening hours changed all the time. But, I mean, we're still in it. As of today, we're still in it. But it doesn't feel the same way like in the early days where it was so much confusion.
Yeah.
I even remember with my team members, like, we didn't know what to do. Like, I didn't know if we should be even touching each other or... It was very confusing. Very confusing. Like, you would go back home and you're like, what do I have to sanitize now and on? Wow. I really hope we never go through anything like this again.
Ever again. And in terms... before we wrap up, I also want to let our listeners and our viewers know she has a podcast as well. So please tune in because, again, it's a wonderful listen. And also, if you're in Jamaica, if you come to Kingston, please, her restaurant's located in the marketplace. Follow her Instagram as well. Are you on any other social? I'm only on Instagram. I'm not
I can't handle more than one thing.
You're like me,
Instagram.
okay? Yeah.
It's too much.
Too much, right?
Stuff,
so, but her information will be on the captions and anything else you'll be that we have to. Okay, it's not normal that things will never be the same. But are there anything? I know sometimes you hint at a cookbook maybe one day in the future.
Eventually one day I'd love that, but as you can imagine, that's a project,
right, of the heart.
It's like a good 1 year project. So eventually, I mean, there's a lot of ideas I want to explore, but the pandemic obviously put a halt on things, but it also gave birth to so many new ideas, which is good because it forces you to be creative.
Definitely.
That's one thing that's like, there's this thing like turn every negative into a positive. As difficult as it is, you really have to get into that mindset. And I think there were still a lot of positives last year.
Definitely.
And I think it forced me to be even, more creative. And and we developed like really nice connections, deeper connections with our guests. My team, oh my gosh, my team are like an all-star team.
They're lovely.
Honestly,
they're
my team, like, they just went with anything, like, I'm like, okay, we're doing this, and they just went with it, and they just, my team is an all-star team.
Yeah.
And I really want them around for, like, I want them to grow with the kitchen.
Yeah,
so.
no, definitely. Well, I want you to come back, because, I have my Global Kitchen series, and so Marianna's heritage is Syrian, Egyptian. She was born in Greece, grew up in France. So there's so many elements. So I would love, again, when you have a moment, because you're so busy, but I would definitely love you to come back into my kitchen one day and to cook something of your heritage in your beautiful vegan way. Like, I just enjoy this lovely Coptic, because, I'm Christian too, and I went in pilgrimage, and when I went to Israel, and we had the Egyptian Coptic church there, the Armenian, the Ethiopian, etc. So I also love and appreciate Coptic Christmas. So when I saw that you did that, kind of a good friend Nihal, who's Egyptian Coptic, and go into her house to eat their food. So I was so happy that you did this. So thank you for allowing me to travel the world through your kitchen while I'm stuck and I can't. And for nomads like us, it's very, very difficult.
That's why this cocktail, like Mexico.
Right, so we're filming in Mexico, in Jamaica. So we travel through our thoughts, through our food. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thanks,
and hopefully we're going to see Marianna back. She's been a great supporter. She has 2 websites, 2 columns on the website. She shared with us her trip to Tunisia, and she also told us how to make grains and cereals in different ways. So check out those 2 articles on the website. I'm Jackie, your host. Thank you so much for joining us for Drinking a Natter. See you next time with another beautiful guest from my inner friend circle. Love and light. Bye. Smooches.
Can I hijack the podcast for 2 minutes?
There's a timer, guys.
There's a timer?
30 seconds, quick, yeah.
I just want to say big up Jackie, because she's one of the few people doing like this 360 food exploration.
Thank
and
you.
I just want to also just say thank you for the work.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie.
Thank
really,
you so
it means
much.
a lot.
Thank
it means
you,
a lot
sweetheart.
for all of us in
Yeah,
food.
because we're all together. We're all in this together.
So big up yourself
too. Thank you. Yay, thank you. Yay, we just made it.